Have you ever heard a love song that set your spirit free? Have you ever watched a sunrise and felt you could not breathe? What if it's him? What if it's God speaking?
The Frank Callen Boys and Girls Club is celebrating 100 years of dedication and service to the community of Savannah. The organization was founded in 1917 by local probation officer Frank Callen.
I joined the Boys and Girls Club in 1947, and I could remember walking through the door and meeting him, not knowing who I was meeting. Looking at Mr. Callen, I can only envision how he felt the days that he relocated here from New York, coming to Savannah and becoming the probation officer here. Now, probation officer in Savannah back in 1917, you could imagine that been an elite job. Had to have been an elite job. But Mr. Callen, working as a probation officer, so what he did is that there are too many young boys coming through his desk, probationers. He have to see if he can become a preventive person. That's when he applied to become a Boys and Girls Club.
In 1922, the club became a member of the Boys Club of America. In 1954, it was renamed the Frank Callen Boys Club in memory of its beloved founder. The Savannah-based club helped lead the way in the national efforts to include girls by accepting female members in the early 50s. The club officially changed its name again in 1992 to the Frank Callen Boys and Girls Club. Who better to reflect upon the rich history started by Frank Callen than the men and women who lived and grew in this historic organization?
I had a big brother named Frank. He's about 4 or 5 years older than I am, or I was. And he would go to the Boys Club. I lived a block away from the Boys Club. So one day I followed him to the Boys Club when I was 5 years old. And of course they let me stay and hang around there. And I've been going to the Boys Club ever since.
I began at Frank Callen in August of 1970. I just completed high school graduation, and I saw this red, white, and blue bus coming out to West Savannah on the west side of town where I grew up at as an infant. And all the boys seemed excited, the younger boys, and they'd get on that bus and they would be gone for about 3 or 4 hours, and then the bus would be bringing them back through, dropping them off. And after about a month, I made contact with Mr. James J. Holmes, who at the time was the program director at Frank Callen, and told him I wanted to come over and talk to him about becoming a volunteer.
Well, how it came to my life, I was raised on the west side of Savannah. And of course, the Boys Club serviced kids from the west side as well as east side. And we knew that the young men were going to be hanging around the Boys Club, so we would always go across and socialize. But the one thing that was fascinating about the Boys Clubs is that you saw the kind of training that they were giving the young people over there. And of course, with us being the way that we wanted to be a part as well.
Well, it was almost inescapable. I was raised on the 500 block of East Gordon Lane. That's between East Broad and Price. The Frank Callen's Boys Club was located at that time on Price Street, the Price and Charlton. Charlton is about 3 blocks from where I live, in the same block. 500 block between East Broad and Price. So it was inevitable that I would be going there.
I started in I started at 8 years old, and I graduated in the programs. I was a part of everything you could think of at Boys and Girls Club.
Well, I started here at the Boys and Girls Club back in 1969. I was like 4 years old, and really it was too young. My father used to volunteer around here. He was a coach, And it's one of the first homes, my second home.
Okay, so I started going to the Boys and Girls Club in the summer of 2007. I was a student at East Broad, and a lot of my friends actually went to the Boys and Girls Club, but for the first summer, my mom didn't have anyone to leave us with because my grandmother passed earlier that year. So she put us in summer camp at the Boys and Girls Club, and I can honestly say my life was like changed for the better.
But for Frank Callen was my first time outside of church and outside of my family being in a structured environment. It was my first time having had the opportunity to be able to meet kids outside of my immediate community in West Savannah. But it was the first time I really had an opportunity to truly understand what it means to be a part of something bigger than myself.
Frank Callen not only started an organization that has changed countless individual lives for the better. The Frank Callen Boys and Girls Club has changed the community forever.
The Boys Club as a club means a lot to Savannah, in as much as that the people have confidence in the program at the club. And look over the years, see the people who come out of that club like myself, like a Prince Jackson, like a lot of folk, like a William Weston, who was over the census report, Caesar Hill. A lot of folk have done great things that had their beginning at the Boys Club.
And the Boys Club sets the standard for youth development. We set that standard. We develop youth. We had programs, a 5-step program. Without the Boys and Girls Club, again, the city of Savannah would be lost. As far as the youth kids, they would be lost. Because it's a big gap if you take the Boys Club away.
It's doing today what it did when I was coming up. I don't know if today's kids realize the advantage they have of the Boys Club being there. I really don't know if they're taking full advantage of it. But if you can imagine tutorials and constructing things to be exposed to at no cost, starting after school and going into the early evening, I can't imagine anything that's any better than that.
You know the slogan that Savannah State University adopted, you can get any way from here? I think Frank Callen has been living that slogan ever since 1917. We haven't used it, we haven't profiled it like Savannah State University. But I haven't seen a child yet that came through that Boys and Girls Club that haven't been worthy because of the character building. I personally know for a fact that that's the place that gave it to me to be who I am today.
Can you imagine the people, our young kids that will be out there on the street having no place to go? Can you imagine the leadership that has come out of that facility and has become the leaders here in this community? And we have to keep that. We have to keep the journey going. That's what the Boys and Girls Club does in this community.
Being able to have an institution that's there for kids to give them some level of structure, consistency, to be a safe haven for kids who otherwise wouldn't have that safe haven, has always been and will continue to be a really important aspect of the Savannah community. And so I've made it a life calling. I've made it a life commitment to do whatever I can to ensure that if there is one kid or if there's 10 that come from the same life experiences that I've had, that those doors remain open such that it will give those kids an opportunity to ensure that they can experience what I've had the good fortune of being able to experience in terms of the influence that the Boys and Girls Club has had in my life.
And I'm just excited that we are celebrating 100 years. Most organizations do not last, especially the way Mr. Callen had to start, but it's been 100 years. And I know I won't be around for the next 100, but I want to make sure that we bring some of our young women and men up that will fall in love with the club like I have and want to see the success of the club continue for the next 100.
100 years of service, 100 years of dedication, 100 years of making a difference. Frank Callen Boys and Girls Club. Here's to 100 more years.
Who knows how to get a hold of us, get our attention to prove it is enough. Who knows how to get a hold of us, get our attention to prove